Microphone check 1, 2. How's my audio sound out there? Please let me know in the comments. Thanks, Vanessa. What's going on, everybody? Mr. Day. What's up, Christian? Let's see. Shout out to Kristen being on Fanboy. If you haven't checked her out, make sure you do. Highly recommended. Well, it's official. We are live. How's everybody doing? Looks like we got a full house tonight or this morning. Great. Vanessa, good to see you. Miss Thang, Jacqueline, Rob, Bogey, Goat. What's up, everybody? Can you believe it's Friday? Like, I woke up, I was like, do I hear the trash truck coming? I was like, it cannot be Friday. They come super early. Like, I wake up at 6 pretty much every morning. No alarm, no nothing, just 6 o'clock on the dot. Nadia says, some are saying that KK will plead guilty at the trial. No, that's not how it works. He has to be charged first. There's been no charges filed against anybody. The Delphi murders is still an unsolved case. So everybody out there who's not familiar or who is familiar with this case needs, there's more confusion involved with this case right now than ever before. So we need more attention out there. We need eyes that may have not seen it as possible. We need something new to break loose. If Kagan Klein's involved, he seems extremely cocky, and that cockiness could come from arrogance or it could come from innocence. It's hard to tell. Good to see you, Laura. Good to see you, Denise. $4:30 a.m. Yeah, it's weird how we have that internal clock. What's up, Marlo? Okay, so what I did was I have this huge hard drive, and it's just filled with all these videos, right? Anything along the last, I guess I started collecting videos about 3.5 years ago. So anytime I would see something of interest, I just archived it. I'll come back to that, or that might lead somewhere, or I find that interesting, or hey, that provides some insight, I think, into a theory that I'm following. So keep in mind, a lot of these videos were coming out before we had any of the Anthony Shots information, before the Ron Logan affidavit was released, and we were surviving merely on speculation. We're trying to keep this case alive. And a lot of times I think the Anthony Shots information might have been specifically designed to do that. Even if law enforcement's not convinced, if they put that information out, it will excite the public, it will excite social media, give them something new to digest. But on top of that, that we don't realize at the moment is that there's people out there that aren't familiar with this case. Like when I went on vacation, people were like, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" "Oh, I talk about, my job," and then they're like, "Well, what else what are your hobbies, or what else, Oh, well, I do a podcast, mainly focusing, or a YouTube channel mainly focusing on the Delphi murders." And I was in a group with 3 other people that were with me and a caddy, and none of them had heard of it. Not one person knew what I was talking about. So immediately I was like, okay, check this out. Go here, go to indiana.gov, Abby and Libby, and just take a look at that. And then if you have any questions, just go hang out on my channel, or, type in Delphi in Google and just read how strange the case is. But just because it's familiar to us, all these people are like, oh my God, this is a libel case. And to be honest, there's not a whole lot of people that are watching what we're doing. The people that are watching what we're doing are the people who are extremely interested and are seeking justice specifically, and already pretty much have all the facts. So I think when they put out Anthony Shots information, they may only be 10% even convinced that it has anything to do with it. But if they can put that out there and create a buzz, then I think that the information reaches further. Hey, what's up, Jill? Got Vanessa, Kelly Miller. Good to see you, Kelly. Nadia, hello. Cheeks. At this point, I'm convinced KK is involved and could very well be a lone wolf. There is a lot that also points to TK, but I find it to be a very typical thing for KK to distance himself from the crime. Well, one thing I wanted to talk about yesterday that I forgot, when they're interviewing Kagan Klein law enforcement, to be exact, and we can read the transcript, we kind of know what happened, but we also know that there's a bias. They're going in there with the theory that this Anthony Shots and Kagan Klein are involved in the Delphi murders. So their interrogation is going to be based on that. They're not going to ask about random stuff that they know isn't tied in, that could actually be more, maybe even more detrimental to the case than the Anthony Shots information. So they're going to go into that interview and they're going to ask some questions that are going to further their suspicion of him, or it's going to relieve some of it. So they're going to ask specific questions that are biased to that theory: Kagan Klein, Anthony Shots, and Tony Klein. So of course they're going to go in there, just like they did with Julian Powell. They didn't ask him anything about the Anthony Shots profile. He had no clue. They asked him if he was angry, and the girls made fun of him, and he just went nuts. So they're going to bring you into that interview, and they're trying to further their own theories and their own speculation, to try to uncover new information or tie somebody to this. So when we read the interview transcript, we got to realize that they're in there with a filter. It's complete confirmation bias in that interrogation. Everything they're asking is specific to that subject and how he's involved in that specific crime. So I don't think we should read too much into the Tony Klein stuff is all. Is he capable? Heck yeah. Does he kind of look like the guy in the bridge? Somewhat, yeah. The things that we've heard that he's done, horrible. But are you really looking at the information critically? And that's all I'm trying to do. And I hope you guys can help me to do that. Kristen behind the crime door says, keeping it alive is paramount. To me, it's the most important thing. Putting pressure on law enforcement to continue doing their jobs. You got these people running for office, local office. You got work to do. You have unfinished business. You need to be held accountable. What's up, Brett? Shout out to Houston, Texas. Of course, Carter says that, because if that case becomes a cold case, that equals failure for him and his crew, and him and his team, and a new team will be coming in. It's not going to sit, and linger. Once it's a cold case, you bring in the cold case crew to take a look at it. That means new DNA, new interviews, all new stuff outside of the corruption that could be present there. So when I reach out to Tony Leggett and I ask him for a comment, on the status of the Delphi murders, and he tells me he can't comment because of his, what's going on with his political status. If I lived in Indiana, that would have pissed me off. But he doesn't represent me. Rockaway, other than his son and his work schedule that links him to the crimes. A lot of mention and pointing from Kagan as well. Cheek says, I think TK was involved in a cover-up, but nothing else. Kind of guilty after the fact. Like, I need your help, Dad. I messed up. I'm a sadistic killer. Surprise. Yep, that's true, Kristen. And you can't be surprised, It's important to us because we've invested that time. Yeah, there's actually one of these videos that I'm going to play where they actually talk about it. They move this guy, and you guys might be familiar with it, you that live in Indiana, the guy who killed his girlfriend. And basically, I think, horrible case. I did cover it a little bit, but not too much. But I kept this video because of the jury stuff. They were having a really hard time finding a jury. Everybody was like, I know this case. This is a tragic case. So like, okay, next. Have you heard about this case? Yes. So they ended up going some further out, some counties that were a little bit further out, and they just had to keep going further and further and further. And at the time of this video, which I think was back in 2016 or 17, they only had 12 jurors. Excuse me, not 12. I think they had like eight or nine jurors. They were missing a few. A lone putty tat. Well, if he's definitely out there trying to deceive people, he definitely fooled you. He fooled me too, but I'm still looking into that whole human behavior and how our eyes can deceive us based on gaslighting. And I mean, he's a catfish. Who knows if he's had access for 3 years? Think about how much he could have injected himself into this case. He could easily use one of them phones to access a profile that's just been sitting around, Possibly. I don't know. Who knows what they are able to sneak into jail. Oh, that's interesting, Nadia. I didn't see it until about I think it was like 5 or 6 months after. And I was just, I could not believe my eyes. Watching that watching that guy walk down that bridge, just it was like I saw a deer and I was, going 90 miles and there's a deer in the headlights. I was just like, what is this? And then you just play that voice and you're like, how is this guy not in jail? Like, look at this guy. How can you mistake this guy? And then you start learning about how messed up that image is. Extremely deceiving. And then you start finding out that law enforcement was using that image for a large portion of their first sketch, or the first sketch they put out anyway. So the older looking sketch, if you read between the lines, they were just doing their best to analyze that image and then maybe mixed with a few, eyewitness accounts here and there, but the majority comes from that image. Now, if you study that image, it's crazy. It looked like a mustached Ron Logan type person. And you're like, oh my God, maybe it is Ron Logan. Click one more frame and then you got something completely different. You got a baby face with like a cigar in the mouth that on the last frame appeared to be a mustache. Or is it a mustache now on this blurry frame appearing to be a cigarette? It's horrible. That's why they say focus on the mannerisms. So at least that much we can still see, and the movement has to be accurate. Cheek says, I was in the car, but I didn't kill them. Whole story is ever evolving, shows me he knows something and is trying to distance, but over time he is breaking. I don't know. Who knows what liars do? Who knows? He could have said that to his cellmate and just been lying completely. What motivates somebody like that? The things that motivate you to wake up, like your job, bills, to take care of your family. Your family is at the root of all of that stuff. But somebody like that wakes up, they're not thinking about regular normal life, you know, moral things, that normal people do just to have a good life. The important thing is not living with guilt. I don't know if anybody's ever had to feel what guilt is like, where you just feel all this regret. If you can go through life without feeling that feeling, you will have happiness, or happiness will be easier to achieve. And this guy, he's drowning in guilt. We get so wrapped up in the Delphi case, we forget about all these other victims. They're going, yeah, we care about the Delphi case too, these mothers, but they're like, what about my child that was victimized by the same guy, potentially the same guy? Or even if he's not involved, what about my child? I need to see him in court and I need him to go to jail for what he did. So we have to be able to separate the two. You can't convict him in your mind and then start seeking a punishment. We have to kind of go along with what's going on. Cooked on low heat like a frog. That's crazy. That's a crazy mental picture. Bogey, I think you just gave me an idea for a good thumbnail. Put Kagan on the face of like a frog in a frying pan. Is it frogs? I don't know if it's lobster or frogs, but there's an animal where you just put it on low heat and the animal passes out and just dies without even knowing it's being cooked. But if you turn the heat up too much, it'll try to climb out of the pan or whatever. Nadia, do you think it is cold? No, I don't think it's cold at all. But I could be wrong. I'm just trying to follow the information to the best of my ability, but it could be cold. The second they announce that the Anthony shots information hits a dead end, what else is there? Talking King Klein after he's sentenced, he's doing his time. He may even be 2 or 3 years in. We're still having these same conversations. My only question is, at what point is it best for the case to call it cold? I think that's a better question. Yes, like we're cleaning out the cobwebs. I know it's not spring, but we're doing some spring cleaning. I need to make some room on this hard drive here, because I plan on, um, I guess, starting from the beginning, so to speak. Taking off the blinders. The Anthony Shots blinders. Is that most likely going to lead to this killer? In my opinion, yes. Ski mask, the contact the day of. Um, I mean, it's obvious, but then you think about the variables. Why do you think that? Oh, well, the affidavit. Oh, well, they can lie in the affidavit. You have to do that math. The lady of justice, she's weighing it out. You don't have to come out here and um, provide your inner monologue or whatever, but if at the end of the day, whether you're out here discussing your deep opinions about it, don't lie to yourself about it. Don't leave the facts out for yourself, if anything. Yeah, but if you think about it, I mean, why were they searching the Wabash? They didn't come out and say it wasn't about Delphi. I mean, to me, it looks apparent that Kagan snitched. Or what happened was they came out with the Anthony Shots information. Well, it's almost like they did a strategic. They arrested Kagan Klein. They raided Tony. So maybe they found something in that search, or went back looking and then found out what it was that they were looking for actually got tossed in the Wabash around that time, because they could have been very cocky, thinking they had gotten away. Then boom, here's this raid, and then I think, what was it, like 6 months or sometime after Kagan was locked up, 3 years after that original raid, they raided Tony separately. So maybe they did all this strategically to watch movement. Maybe they witnessed Tony throwing something into the river. Or maybe somebody came forward and said, hey, we saw him do. These are the things that I hope are happening, because you want to give credit to law enforcement and say, hey, they're being creative, and they do have training in psychology and techniques and kind of ways to dangle a carrot through that knowledge of psychology, or the timing of it all. Big liar. He is beyond a liar. His whole life is a lie. He is completely lost in fantasy, in my opinion. He's completely out there. He's married to the sea, and the sea is basically the devil. Yeah. And they do mention that, Matt. Matt says, do you think law enforcement got potentially slack, complacent at the beginning? They had the killer on video and audio. They must have thought it would be an easy case. Yeah, there's a few things that make me think that. They always mention, well, we were onto something. We thought we were onto something early on, and it may, prove to be true still. But it's almost like they're holding on to that. Like, man, we really thought this was going to be easy. We thought we had it locked up. Or there's just something that we don't know, that's tying a lot of this information together behind the scenes. They're holding their cards close. But there was a discussion. I think it was you, Kristen. You guys were having a discussion, and I've often thought about this as well. I think it was last night, about the CPS building and the vehicle potentially not having anything to do with the case. They're just like, well, this is one piece of information. This is another piece of information, and we learned our lesson. We don't want to hold back too much. So here to tie it all together. I had that same thought, but now if you go rewatch that 2019 presser, It's very specific. And why release all of that information together? I mean, to me, it points right at Keegan Klein being involved. Um, uh, and if you look at the video, that's what they open the presser up. You know, they talk about the family, they talk about, you know, why we did certain things, and then they go, here's the new information. We're looking for information on the driver of a vehicle. That's how they opened up the presser. It's obviously connected with that young person sketch from the source, murder sheet source. Kagan already admitted to being in a vehicle while somebody else committed the crime. I mean, it's all coming clear right now. We all know it all sounds like it's all fitting in and the puzzle pieces are fitting together, but it only really would take one piece of really solid information to completely destroy that. Kind of like the information Kagan was referring to, his Google GPS locations. I mean, if they can actually prove that he wasn't there that day and they have him on video somewhere completely, you know, 50, 60 miles away and at a time where it would be impossible to get, you know, to the crime scene and commit the murders. I mean, that's it. That shows that he was lying. He may not be connected, and we're dealing with just like a really horrible coincidence. And what we now know in Indiana as a cesspool of CSAM and stuff like this. Vanessa says, you made a great point on last night's live about the Keener pictures. Why wouldn't we see anyone else there searching the 14th? I would have thought there would be tons of searchers there. Well, a lot of them were asked to meet up at the fire station around 8 a.m. We have video, we got photographs of, you got Derek German out there, you got Pat Brown, you got half of the fire department, and you even see some news media out there. So everybody's meeting up there. But what I found strange is right around 10 o'clock, between 9:30 and 10:30 is when J. Carroll Keener was out there taking those first photos, according to his Twitter posts. And they seem to be the only ones out there, along with those two gentlemen that were returning from the South End, which was very suspicious, in my opinion. And at the same time, it wasn't. You know, we're asking why nobody was out there. And then you got these two fine gentlemen that could have been, you know, taking their time to go out there and look. But we're just so cautious. You know, everything is so confusing. Everything's a clue for us, you know. But we got to be careful. We got to set limits. Okay, so what I have planned today is I'm just going to go through these archive videos. Some of them are really short. Some of them are 2 minutes. Some are 5 minutes. I think I pulled about 20 of them. We'll just look at them. We'll talk about them individually. And we'll kind of see if it provides insight to what we're trying to do here, if it could potentially be related. To provide some kind of understanding. So let's take a look.
Solicitation is a person of interest in an attempted abduction in Carroll County. News 18's Samantha Tiki joins us with the latest on this investigation. Sam.
Gina, Carroll County Sheriff's deputies believe 31-year-old Kevin Jamison of Lafayette is a person of interest in that attempted abduction on Tuesday. And now he's behind bars in Tippecanoe County. But it was his alleged involvement in the attempted abduction that led to his arrest.
It's a parent's worst fear.
An individual in a black Jeep with red doors had approached her and was attempting to entice her into his vehicle.
And for the parents of an 11-year-old girl riding her bike in a rural part of Carroll County Tuesday evening, that fear almost became a reality.
She had indicated he had offered her $10 as an additional enticement.
Carroll County Sheriff Tobe Lesenby says the attempted abduction happened on County Road 100 North, just west of State Road 29. The day after releasing a description of the vehicle and the person of interest, they got a call from Lafayette police who located a matching vehicle and its driver, 31-year-old Kevin Jamison of Lafayette.
He provided information which was generated into our reports and went back to his parole officer, which was considered a violation of his parole.
Jamison was arrested Thursday evening in Tippecanoe County for violating parole. He has prior drug charges and was convicted of child solicitation in 2008, for which he will serve a lifetime on the sex offender registry. Lesenby says although charges have not been filed for the attempted abduction, he's positive they have the person of interest in the case.
This individual obviously could have still been out on the street this weekend, and who knows what may have developed there. So I'm glad it came to at least this conclusion at this point.
But Lesenby says the incident is a terrifying reminder of the reality all parents must face.
As a parent in particular, be on your toes. Be aware of what's around the next corner.
Thanks, Tobe.
Lesenby says Carroll County Prosecutor Rob Ives is still evaluating the case. He says he wants to thank the public for its help providing information. Jamison is being held without bond in the Tippecanoe County Jail. Samantha.
I mean, it doesn't get any creepier than that. Hey, Jessica. Kagan could have borrowed that Jeep since Tony was off those Mondays. Yeah, it's possible. And if he doesn't drive, he was in the passenger seat. That doesn't mean that Tony was driving. What's up, Birdman? Kristen says, KK spoke to Libby the day she was murdered. That's not a coincidence. But have we truly missed someone in all of this Klein talk? That is true, Kristen, but I think it very well could be a coincidence. You got to remember the information that was provided in the affidavit makes it appear that Kagan was casting out a broad net. You know, if he's doing this, he's been doing it since 2014. He's getting better. It's turning into part of his routine. He wakes up in the morning. He sends out a mass message. He's a fisherman. He's fishing for victims. So if he does it every day, who's to say that on the 13th, it wasn't just normal for him? Okay. He casts out the net. He's communicating. Because even in the transcript, it says he was doing that even after the girls were murdered. So of course that could be to help him appear innocent, but it also could just be him continuing with this habit. So I think it could be a coincidence. Do I think it is? No. But I do think it's possible that it could be a coincidence. You could have somebody that maybe was unrelated to it, or even maybe seeing her creating a relationship with somebody. You know, her friends knew about it. Everybody knew about it. So they could be out talking about it like, oh, yeah, you know, Libby has this new boyfriend. He's older and he's like this successful model type guy who travels, you know, and then the word spreads around. And then somebody that's obsessed with her, or Abby, who knows, somebody that's obsessed with the girls, most likely relating to Libby, because that's where the conflict seems to be. So if he's obsessed with her ex-boyfriend or somebody who was interested in maybe asking her to be the Valentine, we have Valentine's Day. So there's all these ins and outs. So maybe somebody was viewing this awesome relationship. They were also being catfished, you know, they're by this misinformation or misleading by Kagan, and became jealous and plotted, you know, to kill them. Or even maybe that was part of the staging. Like, hey, come, you know, I'm going to take you down here and show you what I did. And then rejection. You know, I think there's just a lot we don't know. We have a new member. What's going on? I didn't see it pop up. Amanda Morrow says a 72-year-old rich drunk whose phone pings at his property supposedly sometime during their murders, or 22-year-old pedo who's been grooming children into sending him nudes, vids, trying to meet up with them. I don't think that Ron Logan was rich. But yeah, I agree with that. And he definitely was grooming. And towards the end, we're going to get more into the CSAM stuff and the grooming. And one of these news outlets created a special where they interview convicted child predators who have served their time. You know, they went and did 30, 40 years and they came out and they go to counseling and stuff, and they don't mind being monitored. They feel like they have it under control. They actually are trying to educate parents, and they're speaking with this news channel and telling us what to look for, how he did it, how these predators went out and picked their victims, what parents should consider red flags. So I saved that for the end because I want the main conversation to kind of happen there, and I figure we can spend more time in the chat at that point. So hard to catch up to this chat. I need to slow it down a little bit more, but I know how annoying that is. Kindness goes a long way. Kindness is a good weapon against your enemies too. Kindness, it's a good gift for your friends and your neighbors and your family. And it's also a great weapon against your enemies. It's a win-win. Amanda, hello. And he's been doing it for years. If KK has absolutely nothing to do with it, why would HLN even interview him? I mean, I think HLN already had a podcast, right? I think it's called Down the Hill. Yeah, that's a good question, Digital. What if it was Libby's friend and not Libby chatting with Anthony Schott's account? Like trying to scare her, maybe? Like, oh yeah, I'll meet you at the Monon High Bridge. You know, just trying to mess with her friend, or she's upset with her. Like, yeah, I'll be on the south end of the bridge. I haven't seen anything to support that, but like I said, there's a lot we don't know. Hey, what's up, Lakeside? What's up, Tech Death? Good to see you. Sensei Wackadoodle. I think you have a certain amount of evidence, but for some reason they either can't identify the person or it's not enough to convict. Yeah, it does seem like that, huh? They have an idea, or they've narrowed it. I really hope. Yeah, and Ives he was like, man, this is a local. That's why I started getting away from the whole serial killer, and maybe this was a fledgling serial killer maybe in the making. Sometimes they'll kill locally, and then they'll realize how dumb it was later, and then they'll use that local place as an anchor point. And then you got to try to figure out the patterns. Yeah, matter of days. Some local wacko, leaving strange signatures to mislead law enforcement. Apparently it worked. If that's the case, it worked. Yeah, they could be bluffing, but eyes on the case is the most important thing. And they need to generate some solid leads. So that could have been their understanding by releasing that information as well. And maybe it worked. Seems like a lot of stuff was happening, right away. There was a lot going on in a short amount of time. You had the Anthony shots. You had the Kagan Klein information. Well, really, you had the arrest of Kagan Klein. Then you had the raiding of Tony alone. Then you had the HLN stuff, murder sheets information, and it just keeps going on and on and on. Yeah, he could just be manipulating. I mean, what else is he going to do? How else is he going to entertain himself? Especially if he's innocent or he's already told his part. Why not go mess with all these weirdos in social media? Why not? He is a local kid. local man, I should say. He always wanted to be famous, remember? So maybe he's just playing into all that shit. Maybe he's finally just reaping the rewards that he was seeking. All right. I don't think I'm going to be able to catch up on this chat. All right. Let me play a couple of these videos. There's no real rhyme or reason to them. It's really the order in which I found them is the order I'm playing them. So when I recorded them and added them to my collection, that's how I'm going to play them, in that very order.
Deputy is on administrative leave tonight, charged with trying to solicit sex from a couple last month. A special prosecutor charged Carroll County Sheriff's Department Deputy Jason Dunning with making an unlawful proposition for the incident that happened late in August. Carroll County Sheriff Toby Lisenby said Dunning was off duty at the time of the alleged incident. Dunning has been placed on administrative leave, and the case is being handled by the Clinton County Special Prosecutor.
What's up, Frank? Oh, my bad. I was going to put something up here for you guys, and I forgot. So now we can take regular calls in on my live streams. It goes right through my iPhone and right into my sound card, and it'll come up on the stream. Let me go ahead and put this number back up here. So if you want to jump ahead on the chat, you can block your number. I don't know if you guys know that. *67. If you just want to call in and ask a question, feel free. Good to see you, Frank. Yeah, he does have a young niece named Emily. And yeah, there's a lot of disgusting stuff that kind of surrounds that. Especially with the things that they found on those devices. Hey, what's up, Teresa? No, you're not late. We're barely getting started. I mean, it's already been like 45 minutes. I haven't played anything. So that's not good. Let me send a couple emails real quick because I'm not going to abandon the stream. Oh, I'll send it when I have some more time. Oh, I see what you guys are talking about. Copper Horse gifted 50 Sleuth Intuition memberships. How come that didn't pop up on here? That's amazing, Copper Horse. Just in time, too. Because Monday or Tuesday, we're going to do a members only live stream. Digital, there are some, but I'll see if I can put something worth covering together. And if anybody has any more information on the J. Kyle Keener stuff that pertains to Delphi, his earlier reporting, if you could send it to me at sleuthintuition@gmail.com. Yeah, that's 100%, Ann. Unless you didn't go there intending to kill. All right, let's
Charged
keep
with
going here.
beating his wife to death with a hammer.
WMAR 2 News' Jeff Hager with more on this deadly attack.
The initial call came out as a woman who had been struck in the head and was unconscious, but it would soon be learned her fate had already been sealed.
I
Court
think
records
this one's out of
suggest this
Massachusetts.
two-story house on Dayspring Drive dates back more than a century, and 59-year-old Jeffrey Caples and his wife Kelly had called it home for nearly 2 decades.
Always together, always getting in and out of the car together, always in the yard together. Whenever I never saw one without the other.
This neighbor, who does not want to be identified, says that all changed on Wednesday afternoon when Caples emerged from the house and police arrived to check on a report that his wife had been knocked unconscious and wasn't breathing inside.
It looked like a hammer and a knife was used, so it had to be just a god-awful mess in there.
According to charging documents, investigators discovered her body lying in a pool of blood at the base of the staircase, with the bloodied hammer and 7-inch kitchen knife laying nearby. Police also found defensive wounds on her fingers, where she had apparently tried to fight off her husband as he murdered her. Investigators also found the alleged killer had blood spatter on his face and clothing. He has since confessed to the killing, but neighbors are left to speculate
Thanks, Copper.
as to the reason why.
He said his last place of employment was the Horseshoe Casino down in Baltimore. He was a dice dealer at the craps table. I'm sure, like the missus said, that had to add to it. You're out of work, for this long a period of time, and yeah.
Jeffrey Caples is now being held at the Carroll County Detention Center in Westminster on a first-degree murder charge. Reporting in Hampstead, Jeff Hager, WMAR 2 News.
Yeah, and what's strange about this one is they mention certain events in their life that might cause like a sadistic killer to act. Loss of job, bankruptcy, divorce, things like that. So I was kind of on this theory that who we were looking for might have been going through something like that. And that's what originally led me to Thomas Jerome Bruce, and where I started talking with Michael Catt about Thomas Bruce. Convicted of attacking a senior woman in her home and killing, I think it was a woman, and raping 2 others. Apparently he had these huge changes in his life. I think one was a bankruptcy, and then the other one might have been, I think, a loss of a job, because he was out looking for work at the time, and that's how he got arrested. He left his card with the bar and was like, "Hey, if you guys need any work, here's my card." So I'm assuming that was when he started drinking, because he was drunk as shit that night. That he was one of those people. He would get liquored up and the demon would come out. So I'm sure walked into the bar, sat down, was like, "Hey, you guys hiring? Here's my card, blah, blah, blah." And then started, smashing him down. And then somewhere near that same plaza at a Catholic supply store, he probably stopped in there, and then boom, that sadistic switch, I don't think it was planned at all, from my understanding. Oh, I think we got somebody actually calling in. Okay, this is going to be our guinea pig. So let me mute this. Yeah, sorry about that. So if you were just calling in right now, if you could please. Okay, here we go. Bear with me.
Sorry.
Hold on one moment
Oh,
here. I want to make
okay.
sure everybody
All
can
right.
hear us. We have a
Okay.
caller. Chandra's calling in. Can you guys hear her? Chandra, can you say hello?
Hello.
Okay, let me see if our audio is good. So you're my first caller with this new little setup I got here. So I want to make sure it's working before we get into anything.
I'm a new subscriber too.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, Chandra,
Yeah.
they can hear us both loud and clear, so this is super awesome. What's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to discuss something that had happened to two young girls that I knew way back when I was about 12, 13 years old. I live in about 1 hour outside of Vancouver, south of Vancouver, Canada, and there were two girls that were close to my age walking through a very public park on their way home, and they were attacked by a stranger with a knife, and one was sexually assaulted, was forced to watch, and totally horrific. They never caught the guy. This was back in the 80s.
Okay.
But my point to this is a lot of people, how would you be able to wrangle two girls? It would be really difficult. And I think about that time, and Canada just doesn't have as many handguns like you do down in the US. We have much less people. And in that situation, one person was able to do this horrific crime. So I think that, you know, when I think back, you know, during my teenage years, I don't think I would have left my best friend. So I can see one person doing this as well. And then my other question is, does anybody know if Keegan actually has or had a driver's license? Like, people say that he didn't drive. However, did he have a driver's license but just didn't choose to drive? Because sometimes I think that
you're kind of saying,
you
like,
know,
verifying the basic information that's in our ability to verify. That's a good idea.
you know, and Tony Klein is a monster, but being a car guy and obsessed with cars would not having insurance, because that would invalidate the insurance. So my point is did Keegan drive and did Tony loan the vehicle? You know, obviously Tony did horrific things, but it's strange. Who knows what goes on inside the mind of a monster? Where does he draw the line? You know, I'll stalk 11-year-olds, and I will basically beat my stepchildren and
he smashed
just do the
his
horrible
stepson.
things that he does. But
he smashed
you know,
he smashed his stepson's face into a toilet, apparently, breaking his orbital socket.
exactly, horrific. And then the other thing is that his stepdaughter hunting her, telling her to run, and basically getting off on chasing her and shooting her, and she ends up needing surgery in her elbow. And it seems like that he got off on the chase, and the power of it. So sometimes I think that that's Keegan on the bridge. And I know that he's a lot heavier now, but I don't honestly see how they can absolutely tell the weight and the height. And also the bridge ties were so uneven that the person could have appeared to look shorter on the bridge, and bridge guy is slumped over. And it also looks like his beard, if he has a beard or a goatee, and it's brown. And when I look at Tony Klein with his goatee, he had kind of a salt and pepper, like a grayish goatee. So on one hand, I think Tony is very capable, but sometimes I think it's keeping on that bridge.
Yeah, and maybe it's both of them together.
Yeah.
It's not, the
Yeah.
statistics are against us on that theory. It has happened in the past. It's not very common, but who's to say this one time it didn't happen, you know?
Well, it sounds like, and just the fact that his stepson said it doesn't sound like Tony, but it does sound like, half brother. Keegan, half brother, said it does sound like Keegan, and he paused with it. So
yeah, like he was telling the truth.
Yes, and he sounded very credible. And I also think that there could be sort of an optical illusion with how bridge guy looks on that bridge in terms of his height and his weight.
And also, you got to think somebody like a Kegan Kline, if he is a lone wolf type of killer, he's going to be in his full confidence, and people aren't going to be familiar with that person. He's going to look different, he's going to act different, and he's going to do different things.
Absolutely. So, I don't like to name people publicly, but because they're so out in the mainstream now, that I'm okay with that. And the other thing that really got the hairs on the back of my, you can go back and just do I don't know if you can contact that person, but the wife that was really struggling to tip in her ex-husband, that really stood out. And that was the first time that her call stood out to me since KK and TK. And my concern is that if she called it in, could her message just get lost in a sea of tips?
Well, I've actually spoken to her. Yeah, I've actually spoken to her. She's a regular subscriber. She attends a lot of the live streams, and she comments and she emails me stuff. So I've spoken with her. She said she got a lot of weird activity after that, and she noticed that I had reposted it on another video, and she just wanted to kind of reach out to me and talk with me about it. So I did get some details, and apparently she did in fact tip it in, and I think she did receive a follow-up on that, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. I'm just saying, just for her peace of mind, at least they could rule him in or rule him out. But that's exactly the kind of tip that I think Doug Carter is looking for. And I thought she seemed very credible, and I didn't think this was a woman that was scorned and vengeful.
Not at all.
She seemed very concerned. And lastly, so I don't know. TK and KK are my POIs. However, sometimes I just don't know. And I just don't understand why KK, even being a pathological liar, why would he place himself near the scene, at the scene, and moving the bodies if he wasn't involved?
I think he would do it. Now, we don't know who he revealed this information to. Was it in an official capacity? I don't know. Was it maybe it was the same guy, similar to the Unsolved, where they spoke to one of his old cellmates. So if he could have just told some random person, maybe because he's a liar. You know what I mean?
Well, okay. They said that they learned of it from, it sounds like their source was somebody in law enforcement. correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not
And they
100%, so I'm gonna
okay,
listen to
I was
listen to
under
your
the
details about
impression
it.
that I was under the impression that whoever Keegan told law enforcement that he was waiting in the vehicle,
Okay.
and somebody basically that he was waiting in the Jeep,
Mm-hmm.
and then the driver of the Jeep committed the crime, and that was on murder sheet.
And it kind of makes
So
sense if you think about it. Okay, Kagan says, I don't admit to anything until you show me the proof right in front of me, right? So that means at
right,
some point, law enforcement must have came in there and showed him, like, look, there you are. You're sitting right there in the Jeep. That's you, right? Yes, I was in the Jeep while somebody else was committing the murder. Something along those lines,
the
maybe.
the Marathon gas station, him looking up the Marathon at gas station, looking up the address, contacting the girls, the Anthony Shots account, contacting the girls on the morning of the crime. There just seems to be too many coincidences. However, I'm shocked to see how many pedophiles are in Indiana and monsters that live in Indiana.
There's a lot. And what's scary is
Yeah.
when they find these pedo rings, it's not just in one state. Like these guys are sharing information. Like one of the videos we're going to cover today, a man from Indiana, a young kid like Kagan Klein at the time, like 20. He was selling CSAM to a guy in New Zealand. Like, how does that happen?
Wow. Okay. So, what is your thoughts on why Keegan basically would put himself at the Jeep, Jeep up near the bridge?
I think involved these type of criminals, they tell half truths. He's just going to tell the part like he always does. I'm just going to tell half of the truth because that's all you guys can prove. I'm going to limit my involvement until you can prove otherwise. It's almost like a defense mechanism, I guess, when you're under the spotlight like that. But I think potentially right now, I think Kagan could have gone and done this all by himself, or somebody could have done it behind Kagan's back without him knowing it.
I actually think that he could have done it by himself too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people underestimate and think he's pathetic. What are those men called that have trouble with girls? I'm trying to think of, and then go out and have hatred towards girls, women, because they can't.
Incels?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Involuntary celibate is what that means, guys.
Exactly. And he did meet that other girl in the park, right? And she showed up with her friend, and he was very angry about that. Yes.
He threatened her to cut her throat.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe he finally had the courage, built up the courage to go through with this horrific.
We don't know if that was Kagan, because we know that Kayla says, I never met him face to face. So here we go again. We could have that shadowy figure using his devices. I don't think so. I think it's him.
Yeah. But they also have a weird dynamic. Him and his father have a very strange dynamic, and I can also see his father having absolute control over Keegan, and Keegan doing whatever his father says. And I can see Keegan waiting in the car as well while Tony.
Mm-hmm. Little tag along.
Yeah. Tony's a monster to me, and he fits the profile.
And he always has that Joker smile. That's the thing that bothers me.
Yeah. And it's the other thing is it's just bizarre that because I was able to go on his Facebook account, and his Facebook account was open, and he was going to concerts. This was last year while Keegan's in jail. And if you're even if you don't have anything to do with Lydia and Abby, the fact that your son is in jail and facing huge hard time for CSAM, and you're out there just having the time of your life and
No
going
shame.
to concerts.
No shame.
Yeah, it seems bizarre. It seems very bizarre. If I were a parent,
Call from.
hello?
Yes, are you
I
still
think we
there?
got cut off.
Yeah, I have another
Yep.
caller on hold, so.
Okay, that's okay. I'm going to let you go so that they can come in and speak. I'd like to hear what they have to say. I also just wanted to say there's another, and they don't even make money. Like, they're not set up through advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And I just adore them. They're wonderful. You should check them out. They're fun guys. They're called Life After Life, Life After Life, Paranormal, and True Crime.
That caller hung up, by the way.
Okay. Talk later. Thank you.
I appreciate the call, Chandra. What was your name again?
Sandra.
I'm sorry, one more time. Oh, I think I lost you. One more time, I'm so sorry. I got to figure this out. Okay, hold on. Okay, looks like we have a caller here. David Sisson, how are you?
Okay. It's about the Delphi.
Sandra, for calling in. I hope I'm getting that name right. If somebody can correct that. I'm sorry to end your call that way. I didn't mean to make you feel like you're getting forced off the call. I just wanted to figure out how I could communicate here with the second caller and just kind of keep them on hold. And I'll figure that out. It does have that option, so I apologize. Okay, proceed, caller. I'm so sorry.
I'm just calling in a tip.
Okay, and you're calling. Why are you calling me with the tip?
Because the phone number, this is the phone number that they've got down on the bottom of the screen.
Oh, so I should clarify that. This is to call into the to talk here. Let me go ahead and post that number now. Did you have anything you wanted to talk about, or you just need to get that tip right away?
Well, I'm just going to say that interview with Robert Logan, the owner of the land, he was wearing a hat and jacket just like the guy on the bridge.
Yeah, he was, huh?
I mean, nobody noticed that?
I mean, we noticed it, but wouldn't it be covered in blood?
No, he wasn't. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean he didn't do it because he didn't have blood on him, but I'm just saying he's dressed identical to the guy on the bridge. Nobody thinks that's suspicious.
It's very suspicious, but if we're going to say he's identical, that means that, are we talking like he's wearing the same clothes?
Yes, he's got the same hat and the same jacket that the guy on the bridge is wearing in his interview.
That would be perfect for law enforcement to use to bust him, right? All that DNA on there.
Oh, I mean, I would have noticed. I noticed it 5 years ago when it happened.
So you think he could have committed the murder wearing that clothing, and not gotten any evidence?
Oh, I mean, it happened on his property. I mean, who would know the land better than him?
Mm-hmm.
You know, he might have shot him and then just stabbed him later, or I don't know. I mean, there's a million ways he could have done it.
You think he looks like that guy on the bridge?
What do you think?
To be honest,
he's wearing the same hat, same jacket. What do you think?
To be honest, I'm not sure. There's moments when I'm looking at the information. Yeah, but I mean, are you really looking at the information, or are you just assuming?
I'm looking at the interview with him before he died, and the guy that was on the bridge. He's got the same hat and jacket on that the guy on the bridge was wearing,
which would be covered in blood.
Not necessarily.
How is that possible? You're saying coming back?
Not necessarily. Sam Shepard didn't have any blood on him after his wife was murdered.
What about hair follicles, fibers?
Well, I mean, weren't they looking for that stuff from the start? I mean, was he never a suspect?
No, he was the main suspect. But the thing is one thing that nobody talks about with Ron Logan is there was a physical person who came forward with information putting him somewhere where he couldn't have been the bridge guy. This happened.
I heard he lied. I heard he got somebody to give him a fake alibi.
He did, and that's a fact. He had his cousin lie for him because he was out drinking and driving.
Okay, doesn't that explain it?
What, that he was out drinking and driving and would make him a habitual offender in the state of Indiana?
Well, that is against the law.
And he went to jail for it, and that's what he was trying to prevent, in my opinion.
Well, I don't care about a DUI. I'm trying to investigate the murder of the girls. I don't care about no DUI.
I know. I'm trying to explain
he might have been drunk when he did it.
Well, his motivation was the DUI. He's like, okay, I'm an habitual offender at this point. If they catch me with this, so he's feeling if he's not involved, and he could be that bridge guy. He could be the person on the bridge.
Well, he's dead now.
Yeah, he's passed away, but at the time, he's like, okay, he's thinking that I was out here breaking the law and breaking my probation and out here drinking. They're going to put me away for a long time. I have to figure out what I need to do to protect myself.
Yeah, and you can go away for a long time for murder too.
Correct, but you don't think that was sufficient motivation to have somebody tell a lie for him?
Yeah, to stay out of jail. Yeah, people will lie.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get across.
I mean, I'm not a homicide detective, but I have common sense.
And that's the best thing you can have when you're looking at these cases, really. I mean, that's what law enforcement will tell you. You know, common sense.
I'm just surprised nobody's even brought that up. He's dressed identical to the guy on the bridge.
Yeah, but
right after the murder happened.
So that means that he's got on the evidence that would be considered evidence, and while he's being searched, while he's doing interviews with the media, he's wearing evidence on his person.
Well, I mean, everybody's got eyes. They can see it.
I mean, that's not the same jacket.
Yes, it is. It's a blue color.
Yeah,
the hat's same color.
The hat's not the same color.
Same kind of hat. I mean, good grief. I mean, people have eyes. They can see.
Here, let's pull up a comparison. And I think everybody, you know, they look at things differently. Everybody's seeing the same thing, but their brain is processing it differently.
No, I'm not saying for sure that he did it. No, I don't know for sure that he did it. I just think it's awful strange that right after the murders, he's wearing the same clothes that the guy on the bridge had on, and it's on his property. I think that's kind of a strange coincidence.
I don't think it's strange because everybody dresses like that there. I mean, it looks pretty.
No,
common.
He's the only one I saw dressed like that. Everybody else I saw him talk to wasn't dressed like that.
And you might be right. I'm definitely not telling you that you're wrong. I'm just telling you I'm not of the opinion. I don't subscribe to it as of right.
Okay, unless they got evidence that I don't know about that they're not letting out to the public.
Can you see that up on your?
I mean,
screen?
that could be. They could have evidence that they're not telling anybody about. That's possible. Like I'm looking at it right now. I see the guy on the bridge, same color jacket, same kind of hat that Logan was wearing.
In my opinion,
walking slow like a 70-year-old man would.
The person on the bridge, their brim of their hat is bent quite a lot more than the way Ron Logan wears his caps, in my opinion.
I don't know how you can really tell. I mean, maybe he bent the house and hat himself,
Yeah, it could be him. There's times I look at this image and I'm like, there's so much we don't know about this image and what's really going on with why it's so blurry, why maybe the shape, height, and weight of the person may seem skewed.
I don't think that's any big deal. He could have bent the house himself. He could have. He looks about the same weight. Like I said, he looks to me, he looks just like the guy on the bridge, but nobody seems to think that's a coincidence or anything.
I don't think it looks like it.
Like I said, I'd love to see him catch the guy that did it, but I would look closer at Robert Logan.
Well, once they clear out, if they ever clear out the Anthony shots and they're saying, okay, we've exhausted this information, now we're looking at this further. There's going to be a lot of people, including Ron Logan, that I'm definitely going to be looking at closer.
Yeah, I mean, he's dead. It doesn't matter. But I mean, do they have information that they haven't told anybody about?
Yeah, they've admitted to that.
Oh, really? Well, that's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to hear that that they haven't told us everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of information they haven't told us about the crime scene.
Yeah,
Doug Carter
they got
says,
metal detectors in the river. That could mean they're looking for a gun or a knife.
Yep, or a phone. A lot of metal pieces in a phone.
Yeah, or a phone. But I think that Ron Logan looks more like him than Kevin Kline does. Or Kagan Kline, I mean. He looks more like him than he does.
See, I disagree with that.
You think Kagan Kline looks heavier than that guy on the bridge? I mean, Kagan Kline looks like a really overweight guy.
Yeah, but also you got to remember, Doug Carter says how much you've changed since the crime. Now, if you look at what he looked like just a few months after this crime took place, he doesn't look like he does today. He's
did he pass the polygraph?
No, he didn't.
He failed the polygraph?
He failed his polygraph. He says he failed it because of anxiety.
Now is he telling people that his dad did it?
Well, at first he doesn't ever point directly at anybody. He just insinuates, like he tried to talk about his roommate potentially had opportunity to take his phone and do these things.
But he doesn't count his dad out though, huh?
No, he says the same thing about his father, that it's possible that he had access to his devices. And he even admits that, yeah, he has had access to his devices for work reasons.
Mm-hmm. Why don't they just drain the river?
Yeah, they should. I mean, who knows what they would find?
I mean, that probably wouldn't be an easy thing to do. I mean, it's easier to drain a pond than a river.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what that river's feeding into? I don't know if you.
Yeah, I mean, it could be downstream. It could be. I mean, that is probably a lot to. I don't know, but I don't know. But you say that. I guess Robert Logan's out of the picture, huh?
No, I would never say that. What I'm saying is that this image that we're looking at right now could be very deceiving, and Ron Logan could be wearing a different. There's no way that he's wearing that same jacket. I mean, it doesn't even look the same. And it would be. It
look like I could see.
But it doesn't mean that he doesn't have another jacket, hanging wherever he hangs his jackets, and it's much different.
Yeah, but the hat looks the same too.
I just can't see it. There's nothing clear enough for me to make a definitive statement like that.
And Robert Logan, he had a record too, didn't he?
Yes, from my understanding, he did.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm happy to hear that they got evidence that they're holding.
Yeah, apparently there's a lot of information that they have that only the killer would know, and that's the information that we're not privy to. Some people, they speculate, but even if they do know, I don't think that they should be out there sharing that information about that specific crime scene.
Well, I wouldn't either.
Yeah,
I wouldn't give out any information.
To me, that's the integrity.
I mean, that's aiding the perp. Mm-hmm. You're helping the perp when you let that stuff out.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, but I mean, I'm happy to hear they do have some information they're holding. I guess they're waiting until the right time to let it out, huh? Or wait till they got their guy, huh?
Yeah, and it sounds like they're very anxious and they can't wait to tell us what happened. As difficult as it is, people, law enforcement. I'd tell
them to be patient.
Yeah, they're going to be patient, and they just want
us. Even if it takes another year, at least it'll get solved.
Yeah, it's hard talking about that, but a lot of these cold cases, they do end up being solved, quite a bit of time after.
Well, be patient. It doesn't have to be solved this year. If it's solved next year, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, in your opinion, do you think they're on to anything?
Yeah, I think they're getting ready to wrap this up.
Oh, do you really?
I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a few people say that. Of course, that cop that they talk to, he says it every day, you know, so that's why I don't even bother listening to it anymore, because I hear the same thing. I mean, every day there's something new, and every day they tell you nothing.
Yeah, and all it takes is one real piece of information to completely exonerate Keegan Klein. You know, like if they can prove that he was nowhere near and that he's lying about all this stuff just for entertainment purposes, I mean, that changes everything. We're back.
I suspect his dad more than I do him. But you think it's Kagan, huh?
I don't think it's Kagan. I just think the evidence is pointing right at him, and I don't want to overlook anything.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. It just seems to me more like his dad. I don't know. I mean, if it is, I hope it is him, and I hope they get him.
Yep, me too.
Yeah, they just don't have enough on him right now,
huh? Or they do, and we're just watching the process kind of play out the way it needs to. They just
does he act nervous or anything when he's interviewed?
He acts more confident now. Like he's communicating with people, he's sexting people, he's allowed to have people reach out to him on cellular devices. He can video screen. They make it seem as if he can have his girlfriend come in there and she can expose herself to him. Like there's all, so it's almost like he has permissions that others.
How could he have a girlfriend? He looks like a big fat creep.
He has a girlfriend because these girls are twisted. They suffer from, I can't remember the name of it, but you know,
they want attention.
Yeah, they like that kind of stuff.
They want the attention.
The attention, being attached to it, feeling like somehow they're very smart.
Yeah, they're
attach themselves.
Yeah, they can tell people they know somebody infamous.
Yeah, and the more repulsive, the better for someone like who follows or is a Satanist, and that's not to disrespect all Satanists out there, or whatever you do for your religion or whatever. But there is.
Well, the best thing they can do is keep Kagan Klein locked up. Even if they don't have the proof, he's locked up.
Yeah, I have a horrible feeling that he's not going to do that much time.
Oh, really?
He's a first offender. He'll do maybe, I'm thinking 10 years with time served, and then maybe a lifetime.
I heard he's not a first offender. I heard he's got a record.
From what I understand, no.
You mean this is he's got no record? This is the first time he's been in trouble?
I believe, yeah.
I thought I heard different. So I'd be watching his dad.
Yeah, and that's what most people think. Tony Klein, it's because the
capability. And of course, he's got another friend that's a suspect.
Who, the cop?
No, a friend of Kagan Klein is a suspect.
Yeah, anybody that was around Kagan Klein at the time, I think is they might not be a suspect, but they're definitely suspicious, and their name belongs in the story for now.
So you think it's Kagan Klein?
I'm not convinced, but right now, yeah, I'm leaning more that Kagan may have done this. I'm stuck between Kagan being alone or somebody that Kagan knows and he's being set up, and it could be somebody that's even closer to Libby who did this, hiding in plain sight.
But you said the guy on the bridge looks like Kagan.
He looks more like Kagan. Yeah, he looks more like Kagan than he does Ron Logan.
So I can believe he tricked the girls into meeting him in the woods. I can believe that.
Yep, and then he could have been under the influence of something. He could have been planning this for months, for years even.
Well, pedophilia is a sickness. I mean, there's no cure for it. He doesn't have to be on any drugs.
Yeah, and he could have just been high on adrenaline, knowing that he's made that decision.
But pedophilia is a sickness, It's.
Oh yeah.
It's nothing to do with drugs.
No, I'm combining the two. I'm saying drugs and pedophilia. Because we know that he does drugs. He does PCP and acid and shrooms. So he was.
But he doesn't show any sign of guilt though when they talk to him, huh?
Not a bit.
Well, then that pretty much clears him then. Because if they're guilty, they refuse to answer questions. They can't look you in the eye.
Well, he did that stuff prior, but now, after all this new information, he's gotten cocky. But all the stuff prior, no. He was very standoffish, argumentative in the interviews. But to me, if he's confident,
you mean he's getting less confident as time goes by?
no, he's getting more confident. So I think either he's already made a deal or explained his part and the information that he has. So now he can kind of take a deep breath and exhale, like, okay, I said my part. Now I can relax. Or he's now been privy to what law enforcement has. He knows what they have, whether it was leaked or through his lawyer. And that's given him confidence. He's like, well, as long as I don't say shit, they ain't got nothing.
That's why they don't let that information out.
Exactly.
Well, the river. You think they will?
Yeah, I think that they did. I think that this is all.
Well, they're still looking.
No, it's concluded. They're done searching.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
And you think they found something?
Yeah, I sure do. They were so tight-lipped. If it was anything else, they would just simply say it.
Yeah, but wouldn't the river destroy any kind of DNA or anything on it, fingerprints and that? Wouldn't the river destroy that?
Yeah. So I think what they're looking to do is maybe find, let's say they find a bladed object or a tool, and they can somehow tie this tool via a receipt or serial number or anything like that to the perpetrator. Or if it's some type of device, maybe there's a way they could recover information from it.
Did they let him out of jail for a day or two and then he threw it off the bridge?
No. What they did was ISP took custody of Kagan Klein, and also in an official document stated that they were negotiating. And there was a witness, and it's the same source from the murder sheet said that Kagan Klein accompanied them to the Peru Bridge area where they were searching.
Kagan Klein accompanied him?
Yes. Now, was this related to the CSAM? We don't know. The Murder Sheet podcast, according to their source, says that it, in fact, is related to the Delphi case.
Well, doesn't that kind of clear him since he took him to the river?
It wouldn't clear him, but it's going to lessen maybe his involvement. So being the bridge guy doesn't necessarily make you the killer, I guess.
But you think they found something in the river, huh?
Yeah, I do. My intuition tells me that they did.
Now you think Kagan Klein did it?
I think he could have. I think that everything points at him, and I think he could have done it alone. I think he had time to.
You don't think his dad was in on it?
Do I think? Yes. Does the evidence point at that? I don't think that it does. There's not enough on him.
Well, from what I hear, his dad was a pervert.
Oh, yeah. His dad being a bad guy and all of this. Yeah, you can prove that in court all day, but does that make him the killer of those two girls that day? He could even be a killer of somebody else and still not be involved in this. You know what I mean?
Does he have an expensive lawyer?
No, he's out hanging around. I think he moved out of that house, though, in Kokomo up the street. And he's just living his life. He's not concerned about anything, it seems.
His lawyer?
No, I don't even know if he has a lawyer.
No, wait a minute. Kagan Klein's in jail, right?
Kagan Klein's in jail. Does have a lawyer.
Yeah, but you said somebody moved out of his house.
Tony. I don't think Tony lives in that white house anymore.
He might have just moved because of the controversy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to hear you think they're on to something.
I really do. Whether that implicates Kagan Klein or Ron Logan, I'm not sure. But I mean, you can't close your mind to things that we don't know 100%, you know?
Maybe Ron Logan knew he was dying and had nothing to lose by doing it.
Yeah, I mean, he could have been maybe a serial killer. You know, this could be a last hurrah. You know, we don't know. We don't know all that. Is there anything that says that? Absolutely not.
Okay. Think it could be solved within a year?
I hope so. I'm thinking more like maybe 2 to 5 years.
The whole world's waiting to hear something.
Yeah, we have subscribers that follow.
I don't
the
even
case.
bother reading about it anymore because it's just the same old. They keep saying they're onto something, but you don't hear anything.
Yeah, and it's in their best interest as law enforcement when they're making a comment for the public to make themselves look like, there's movement.
Yeah, well, even that one officer, I forget his name, he'll refuse to answer some questions. In fact, they've never even told us how the girls were murdered yet.
I think that's part of the stuff they're holding close. Doug Carter says he knows
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, they've heard they were clothes missing, blood, and stage body, but they've never really given you the detail how they were killed.
Or an official timeline, for that matter.
Well, you knew it was that night.
Yeah, but I mean, what was the sequence of events,
Well, you know, he got him at that bridge.
Yeah, we know that. And we know a little bit about the timeline because of the Ron Logan affidavit. 1 o'clock, they were dropped off around 1. 2:13 was their last communication. And then also their last communication was when the video was taken.
I wonder if it'd do any good to put 24 surveillance on his dad.
My understanding is they did at one point, but I think that's all comes from the rumor mills. There's a weird police vehicle that parks near him. So yeah, I mean, it's all just rumor mill stuff. You got anything else before we continue on?
Tap their phones.
Most likely already tapped. I hope. We hope, right?
They might have already done it. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm happy to hear you think there's hope for it.
Yeah, I appreciate you calling in. I really do think that there was hope. That there is that we should be positive and keep hope that they do have information. But me personally, instinctually, I feel like, yeah, I'm looking at everything, the totality of it all. I think that they found something. They were told something would be found there if they looked, and I think that they found it.
They found it in the river. See, I heard they were looking on the land now.
Well, they're taking all this stuff out of the river and they're putting it on land. So I don't know if they're just going through the debris or they're thinking, okay, well, this area does flood up to this point. Maybe we need to search here, to a certain depth as well. I'm not sure. I have no idea about what they're doing or the procedure.
Okay, well, good talking to you. And like I said, the whole world's waiting to hear something.
Thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
All right. You have a great day. Wow. That was a great call. So if you do want to call in, hit that number there. Now, this is not a tip line. This is to come hang out on the Sleuth Intuition live stream. All right, keep playing some of these strange videos.
Now, police have made an arrest in connection with the death of a 14-year-old Carroll County boy. I'm Sarah Schuckman.
Good evening, I'm Jay Crawford. Russ is off tonight. Jonathan Minard died almost 5 months ago.
And Channel 3's Amani Abraham is live in Carrollton now with what we've been learning about the arrest. Amani?
Hi, yeah, in just a few minutes, deputies will take the podium to release more details into this case. Of course, we'll bring you that as soon as we learn more information. But what we do know today is that the man arrested has been identified as Matthew Little. And today our cameras caught the moments where he was taken into custody. He was taken in handcuffs out of an unmarked sheriff's vehicle.
Instantly sick to my stomach. He seemed like he had no remorse. Like, he knew it was going to happen.
Reaction
Carol.
from the
If you want
family
to call
of
back,
Jonathan
let me know.
Minard, just hours after a grand jury indicted 30-year-old Matthew Little on 15 counts in connection with the 14-year-old's death. For months, a community has been left searching for answers after Jonathan was found in a shallow grave at a Washington Township farm on April 19th, several days after he was reported missing. Minard's cause of death was ruled a homicide by acute fentanyl intoxication. Deputies had questioned a person of interest at the time of Jonathan's death, but no arrests were made until now. No word yet on exactly what charges Little is facing, and no word on motive.
I don't think we'll ever truly.
Hello, caller. Are you there?
Hi, this is Carol.
Hi, Carol. What's on your mind? What can we do for you?
Hi. Oh, I was piping up in the chat and thought I would call. I live in northern Michigan now, but I lived in Indiana, real close to Delphi, for 10 years. There was a couple things about the case that were coming up in the chat that I thought I would call in and chat with you about.
Sure.
Yeah. So Delphi is tiny. I think that it's really hard to understand how small this town actually is. Like, to say that there's one stoplight is being very generous. The trails are beautiful. There's not a lot of traffic even on the trails on the most beautiful of days. So I think with a lot of YouTubers and podcasters and everything going to look at the property, I think it's actually fairly easy to get around to all of the areas, even the bowl area where it's suspected that the bodies were.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with a lot of the evidence gathering, especially in the river search, some of the things that they look for when they do searches like that are any types of markings or DNA that's been kept in a way that it would degrade in other environments. So there are actually some pluses to it being underwater. A lot of the times they're able to pull DNA. So in order to recognize a cell or to recognize a abnormal group of cells, there has to be a number of cells present. So, even our most advanced imaging, there has to be, so basically, 1 billion cells to be able to be detectable. But that being said, that also tells us how small something can be for there to still be detectable evidence. It does sound like in this case that they are concerned about the killer or killers having injured themselves during the crime. They've made comments about organic material. They haven't come out and said it, but I kind of suspect that they have multiple profiles that they might be looking for evidence against. And we've seen that happen. And yeah. And we've seen that in other cases too.
Well, that's interesting. Do you think that it's possible, let's say he threw a device, maybe it wasn't that long ago, maybe it was just a year ago, and he threw a cell phone out there. I know you can get all this crap
absolutely
kind of like stuck in all these little crevices. Do you think there could be DNA hidden in there?
Absolutely. I think, whether it be something like a thumb drive or, some sort of computer device, there's a lot more DNA on things than people realize. And there's areas that DNA holds to different materials, under different circumstances. So, if they suspected that something was tossed into the water in 2017, even if it was 5 years ago, there's a pretty good likelihood that there's going to be evidence on there. The rivers, I live by the big lakes. I'm like a block off Lake Michigan, and the rivers in Indiana are fairly mild. If they do freeze over, it's fairly mild. They don't ever really get warm. The flow isn't really very heavy in that area. So, it wouldn't surprise me if, even larger pieces of evidence hadn't moved too much from where they were thrown.
In my mind,
I think there's a good possibility.
Even if it was like a knife or a heavy object, it shouldn't move very far, right?
No, I don't think it would move very far. And typically when things are moved from crime scenes, 90% of the time it's predation. So that's where you have animals coming in and, tampering with bodies or pulling, items into different areas. That's pretty common. That doesn't happen in the water. So, we kind of get a whole different area of evidence preservation when things are immersed versus,
that reminds
in the woods.
Of the red, they found his skull, but everything from the animals and stuff were actually moving the evidence to different places in the woods.
Yes, and that's very common. I do a lot of, I'm a veterinarian and I do a lot of criminal cases. And that's one of the other things with some of these cases that have come up in some of these trials. There seems to be some discussion of canine involvement, whether that be the way that surrounding animals were acting, or whether or not they brought in, say, scent dogs or scavenge dogs, any type of working.
Animal hair.
Well, yeah. Yes. And so those are the types of things that they start kind of talking about and looking into. But I would have, having spent so much time at Purdue, I would have loved to have had them get more working dogs involved in the search right off the bat. I think that would have been a really, really good thing to do.
It's been a huge controversy, the discussion about the dogs, because they did call them in. But I think they didn't really put any pressure to get them to the location until early on the 14th.
Yeah. And I think, it does such a disservice because they really, the way that we use our working dogs, they're so capable. And especially with some of the information we do know about the crime scene, we do know that there were clothing articles and shoes were not on feet, stuff like that. I think it's a big missed opportunity. And there's some smart dogs in Indiana. So.
Well, I mean, there's a whole group of people in that town who pride themselves on their dogs. I mean, I think they meet up like every Wednesday or Thursday, and they create events where they all go out there and show how smart and trained their dogs are at tracking. They could have easily just reached out to one of these locals, said, "Hey, here, this is the scent. Go find the scent."
Yes. And they've done that in cases even, outside of the window of normalcy, and they've been able to, make some type of map of where, things might have gone from here. Working dogs are so useful, and it's so easy to learn that type of information from them because they don't have any skin in the game, right? So, they're kind of one of the only non-biased, search forms we have when we have cases like this. And I think the other thing, when we are talking about Bridge Guy and how he looks, and, this is kind of like a Midwest uniform. The clothing is generic. It looks like you could buy it at a Meijer. You could get it from anywhere.
You plan to
and
get
really,
it.
Right. I mean, really, it's Carhartt Central in the Midwest. So everybody's kind of in, these working type jeans and, big kind of comfy cold coats, because even though it's 60 degrees during the day, it's going to be, 30 at night. And so that really does, I've seen Bridge Guy compared to so many different things. I think what might actually be the most helpful for them to do, if they do have a longer segment of video of Bridge Guy actually ambulating on the bridge, you can really recognize a lot from somebody's gait. But you can't tell that without more, with less than a couple of steps. I think most of us would say if we saw a family member or a loved one on a video walking, we'd be able to tell. I would know if it was my husband, if he was 100 feet away from me walking. And I think that's a little bit of a missed opportunity too, is to look a little bit more into his movements. Because that's really, I think that would open some doors for people as well.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I mean, law enforcement has said that to us a million times. While looking at this video, please focus on the movement. Then he tries to kind of hold our hands, and he's like, well, he is walking on a dilapidated, bridge. So keep that in mind. Because there's people that won't consider that.
Yeah. And I'm going to be honest, that bridge is terrifying. I mean, it really is. It's 7 stories high. So like that bridge is not for the faint of heart. So, being able to trap somebody on that side of the bridge is pretty easy to do. I think anybody crossing that area or familiar with it, you have to be familiar. You really do. I don't see how anybody would have come off, off 65. There's a big trucking route that goes basically Chicago to Indianapolis. And there's a lot of trucking traffic through there, some through Delphi. There's been speculation as far as, somebody coming in from out of town. I just don't think that's possible. I think it would have had to have been somebody that was, the location, and even familiarity with the bridge. I'm not scared of heights, and I'm not crossing that bridge. I mean, it's a pretty dangerous endeavor. So I don't think it would have just been somebody coming there for the first time.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. I feel like I had a question for you, but now I can't remember what it was. Well, I've lost it.
I wasn't going to
But-
interrupt you because that happens to me all the time. I'm like, it's going to come. It's coming.
Oh, you're good. Well, and I would say between this case and the Murdoch murders is going on, the Wagner trial is going on. It's really interesting because the Piketon case is in a really, really small area of Ohio. And it's the same kind of thing. It's like, these are really, really small communities where the people really do know everyone. And I think it really, for Delphi, Delphi is literally the place that we went and got our engagement photos done. Like, it's a beautiful, beautiful area. And to have this happen in that type of community and not know who it is at this point, I think it's going to be really shocking for everybody when, this case is finally, hopefully, solved. I'm also curious as to see what Kegan has asked for in return for information, because he's already facing enough CCM charges that he's most likely never going to leave prison. So I really wonder what his motivation is for cooperating at this point, unless they have something else on him that we don't know about.
Well, it seems like all this controversy that was going on with Kegan was kind of right around the same time the search was going on and all this stuff. So it kind of correlates, almost like they just gave him, we're going to give you some more permissions. We're going to separate you. You can kind of hang out over here with all the other snitches. We're going to give you extra privileges.
Right. Yeah. And it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I think Kegan's a human garbage heap, but I can see how he would maybe be trying to get one up in the pecking order in prison, because being there for what he's there for is the last place you want to be.
Well, think about it. If I was in prison, I wouldn't wait to be alone with him. I'd be like, this is going to be my opportunity. Everybody knows this creep, and I'm going to get privileges and special things, in here because of what I'm about to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in East Lansing, and over the past several decades, but the few years ago that just passed with the Nassar trial, that actually happened with Larry Nassar. He was in a jail here in Michigan, and
that was awesome.
Yeah, so I grew up in East Lansing. I have friends and family members that were victims, and it was a really, really crazy time for so many things in the area. But John Geddert was, a coach of mine. And my mom actually pulled my sister and I from that program when we were 5 and 7, and probably saved us from, victimization at that point. But, the joy that I have knowing that Nassar has had to be moved a few times because he kept getting his ass kicked, is wonderful. I don't think that there's anything bad with that.
How did he
I'm
even
sure
survive?
Kegan's not having a good time.
I wonder how he survived. That's weird.
Well, they have to keep them all so isolated. I think he's in a place in Florida now where they basically don't interact with anybody outside of those who share those charges. It's kind of like Josh Duggar. That's why he's in a facility, because there's only a few facilities that house these types of offenders. So like Kegan will end up maybe in Seagaville, he'll end up somewhere else because
semi-famous pedophiles.
Right, pretty much. Pretty much, because they only have a couple of facilities that house those types of offenders. But I think Kegan, I think Tony was likely involved. I think they were probably part of a bigger trafficking type ring, especially with how many charges that he's facing. typically these people have hundreds of thousands of pieces of evidence, and I don't think it'll be hard for them to keep Kegan in jail, but I hope they can get Tony put away too, because I think they were both there and both involved.
Yeah, and I think they're trying. I mean, they raided his home.
Yeah.
They tried to get him, and maybe they got more on Kegan at that point. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I also, the thing that I keep thinking about is the DNA, because they've said that they do have DNA from the scene. Of course, we don't know if that's just the girls or, mixed sample. But I would think that they would be able to do at least a partial profile of Kegan, because he's in the system now. And, I know that laws for that type of stuff is really, they're not great for, they're good for the criminals still, I guess, because if you haven't been actually arrested for the crime, I don't think that they can compare your DNA to that case, right? So that's kind of how CODIS works, I believe. So I just keep wondering if they've been able to do any DNA comparison with Kegan to anything that might be at the scene.
And I've also come to the realization they may only have like a few markers, like just enough not to exclude.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's really likely. And you mentioned the animal hair of any kind. I mean, doing fiber analysis is pretty much, it's not really accepted anymore as a viable form of, not providing reasonable doubt, I would say. But knowing, the animal hair, or knowing there were certain types of animal hairs there, I think is good. I think it's evidence that could help. But I don't know that it's something that anyone will hang their hat on. The Atlanta Monster, that case hung on a lot of fibers. So that's kind of a cool case to look into if you're interested in fiber analysis in these types of cases. That's a good one.
I am. Actually, because that was one of the main pieces of information that we had to go on, was Kim Riley coming out publicly and saying that they did have a human element and a science element, and then the Ron Logan affidavit was released. We now know that was hair and fibers.
Yeah. And so I think if you're able to get DNA from that to compare DNA, that's great. I think if they're relying on strand testing and comparing strand to strand. So in the Atlanta Monster case, they were essentially able to find these carpet hairs that were made by, like one company for a very limited amount of time. And they were able to track down exactly where that carpet had gone in the city to what residents used. Yes. And so they were able to, match the carpet fibers, but then they also used the hair from the German Shepherd dog was somewhere in that case. Of course, this was in the 80s that trial happened. But they definitely used the fibers, and the dog hair evidence was in there. But I think since that has happened, we've kind of discredited that type of comparison
it was all
as a good source.
It wasn't scientifically proven, even though they're using scientific methods. I think they're using like microscopes, and they were just kind of matching it the same way they do with ballistics, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, that would be interesting. Man, I feel like somebody else should call in now from the chat.
We're actually running out of time. I'm going to go ahead and I'll probably close down the calls for
Awesome.
now. And then,
well, thanks for taking me.
Well, Carol, I appreciate it. That was a great call. I hope that we can get you to call in again and kind of give us some more information.
Oh, sure, absolutely. It was great being here. Thank you for all your coverage.
All right, thank you, Carol. I really appreciate it. You
all right, take care. Thanks. Bye.
Bye. All right, guys, we're going to close out the call-ins now. I think we'll do part 2 the same way. We'll take calls, show videos, and then about halfway we'll close them out. So let me shut this off here. Okay, and we'll jump right back in.
Truly know why he was taken from us.
Of course, there are still a list of questions that remain unanswered. That's why we're here today. In about 15 minutes, the press conference will start. We will be broadcasting live on our stream at WKYC.com and our WKYC app.
In the case of a Clark County man accused of killing and eating parts of his ex-girlfriend back in 2014. Dennis Ting joins us live from the Clark County Courthouse where the trial of Joseph Oberhansley is set to take place. Dennis, what can you tell us?
Well, that's right. While the trial will be held here in Clark County, that's not where the judge, the state, and defense are right now. They're actually up in Allen County, Indiana. That's near Fort Wayne, selecting a jury. It's been almost 6 years since Joseph Oberhansley was arrested in September of 2014, the southern Indiana man charged with murder, rape, and burglary. Investigators say Oberhansley killed his ex-girlfriend, 46-year-old Tammy Jo Blanton, at her home in Jeffersonville and had eaten parts of her body. His trial had been set for August of last year, but the judge declared a mistrial on the very first day, after a witness gave testimony that the state and defense had agreed not to bring up. Oberhansley's attorneys then filed a motion claiming he was not competent to stand trial. An evaluation in January found Oberhansley incompetent. This is what Clark County Prosecutor Jeremy Maltz said after that decision.
Once that process is complete and the state certifies to the trial court that he is competent again to stand trial, then I will be requesting that Judge Carmichael set the matter for an immediate jury trial and at last get the family the justice that they deserve in this case.
After a stay at Logansport State Hospital, which had been delayed by the coronavirus, Oberhansley had his competency restored in August. The judge, prosecutors, and defense attorneys had to travel to Allen County to select a jury due to the case's publicity. They had previously selected a jury from Hamilton County north of Indianapolis, but found too many potential jurors had already known about the case to return there for this jury pool. Now, when I last spoke to the court clerk's office, I was told that 6 jurors have been seated so far. Now, there needs to be a total of 12 jurors plus 4 alternates selected before this trial can begin. Live in Clark.
With murder after a fisherman discovered a woman's body in a local creek. A release from Kentucky State Police telling us that the body of 28-year-old Liliana Moss of Nassau County, New York, was found by that man on Clear Creek near Shelbyville yesterday afternoon. KSB says William Dodd of Anderson, Indiana, is now charged with murder, tampering with physical evidence, and abuse of a corpse in Moss's death.
Newsroom, federal authorities have arrested 4 people in connection with that HIV outbreak in southern Indiana. The DEA says the 4 men distributed Opana painkillers and methamphetamine in Scott and Clark counties. Authorities blame Opana use for the HIV outbreak in southern Indiana, one with 170 cases so far. The virus spread by shared dirty needles used to inject the drug. All 4 remain in jail tonight.
Carroll County Sheriff's Office as it tries to identify this man seen on surveillance with a hatchet. The department says he tried to get into its office in Ossipee on Friday. The Sheriff's Office wants to find this man so they can figure out what he wanted and to try and make sure he isn't trying to hurt himself or someone else.
And some of these are that I found in Carroll County. These are other places like Kentucky and Virginia. They're not all Carroll County, but they come. I look at Carroll County, Kentucky a lot because it's also under a hold on, or it's only 3 hours away from Delphi, really. So let me unplug this real quick. There we go. And this guy's very interesting. I thought he was very interesting. On the right side, you got this object. It's a hatchet. You know, it's a very short-handled hatchet. Later, Teresa. Hey, Denise. Yeah, lots of crazies.
Williams.
44-year-old Thomas Williams accused of impersonating a police officer. In court today, we learned it wasn't his first time.
He has an extensive criminal history of fraud and involved offenses, as well as some minor misdemeanor violence, swindling, as well as impersonating an officer on a prior occasion in New York.
Williams' most recent arrest came last month after a trooper passed him on State Route 73 in Clear Creek Township.
He noticed what appeared to be an undercover police car coming at him with red and blue lights flashing.
The trooper thought that was unusual, so he pulled Williams over.
He wasn't dressed in any type of police uniform. He did have a badge displayed that he was wearing on his chest.
Troopers say his temporary license plate was forged. In this incident, investigators don't believe Williams attempted to make any traffic stops, but rather used the lights to get to where he was going faster. This, however, is a good reminder.
If you're being stopped for a minor misdemeanor traffic violation, it's going to be someone that's in a uniform of the day, in a marked patrol car with overhead lights on top of the car. It's not going to be hidden in the grill or anything.
Williams' appearance in court today was quite bizarre.
In regards to my diplomatic status in another country, known as Russia.
Excuse me, Mr. Williams?
Even after being advised to keep quiet, Williams kept talking.
I'm just trying to add to the reason why I would not be imposing a threat on the outside in regards to if I was released on my own recognizance.
And today, the magistrate kept Williams' bond at $15,000. Reporting live in Lebanon tonight, Karen Johnson, W.
For your help to find the man who robbed a gas station at gunpoint this morning right across the street from the Carroll County Sheriff's Office. It happened around 5 at the Sunoco on Main Street. Police say he took all the money in the cash register, plus cigarettes and the gas station's phone as he left and then rode away on a bicycle. Gas station owner Paul Singh says even with a strong police presence in the area, this Sunoco has been robbed 3 times.
3 times right across the street.
Everything
from
was
Carroll
okay
County
for a while,
Sheriff's
and
Office.
this just really
Later, Carroll.
shocked me.
Singh says in 2011, one of his employees was stabbed during an armed robbery. That employee survived, and the robber was convicted. Singh says he hopes the same thing happens to the man responsible for today's robbery. Of course, anyone with information is asked to call Delphi police.
Isn't that crazy? So take a look at this guy. So this is just a week prior to the murder in Delphi. And you got a guy walking in with a white face covering and a blue coat, doing an armed robbery across from the sheriff's station with a gun. But the gun is in his left hand. So this guy's left-handed. So, but it looks like they caught him. I think that later that day, they caught this guy. So, police arrest Delphi man for armed robbery. Police arrested a Delphi man just a few hours after they say he robbed a gas station across the street from the Carroll County Sheriff's Office. February 8th, 2017. Delphi police arrested a Delphi man just a few hours after they say he robbed a gas station. Police say Christian Ivan Gusan Aguilera was arrested around noon on Wednesday at his Delphi home. Police say Aguilera robbed the Discount Tobacco in Delphi around 5 a.m. Wednesday. Investigators say Aguilera stole cash and cigarettes during the robbery. $75,000 bond. $75,000 bond. Yeah, if you're calling in right now, we're not taking any more calls right now, guys. Sovereign citizen. All right. So I'm going to try to play all these very quickly. Hopefully I can get them done here in about the next 20 minutes.
In Howard County after investigators say he lured a woman into his car and then raped her. They say 32-year-old Michael Leali knew the victim from a convenience store where she worked. Investigators say back in October, Leali asked the woman to meet him in a parking lot, then told her to get inside his vehicle so they could talk. Once inside, officers say the man drove the victim to a secluded area where he forced her to perform sex acts. Leali faces several charges, including rape and attempted criminal confinement.
Surveillance image of that suspect. This was an incident that took place December 5th. Granted, it's dark and a little grainy, but you can see he was wearing sandals. At the time.
So if this sparks any idea of who this person is or you know anything about this case, please call Lafayette Police.
Bye, Jennifer. Okay, so that suspect is wanted for sex crimes, apparently at a Columbia Park. So if you guys are familiar with Lafayette, you might know where that park is.
Of a 19-year-old man here in Oklahoma for child sex crimes unearths more concerns about social media. News 9's Felice Romero is here with the investigation unfolding in Enid. Felice?
Stay vigilant. Enid's Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force says that remains their best advice for parents. The warning comes after a suspect's accounts set off alarms. 19-year-old Justin Shackley is behind bars in Garfield County on a $250,000 bond.
He had viewed, downloaded, shared child pornography, and then ended up showing me multiple images and videos on his phone of child porn, and that's what he was arrested for.
Enid investigators say it started with a notification from the app Kik and then continued with Instagram and Snapchat.
And in Instagram, there's probably 7 or 8, maybe up to 10 different profiles associated with that investigation.
Okay, I wanted you guys to focus in on that part specifically. Listen to what this officer says.
And Snapchat.
And in Instagram, there's probably 7 or 8, maybe up to 10 different profiles associated with that investigation.
Shackley leaving a big enough digital footprint to get the attention of the Regional Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. They called Enid Police.
They have applications and smart technology that can capture and recognize when pornographic material or child images are being sent.
Police say Shackley admitted to convincing someone he was texting to sexually abuse a child, record it, and send it to him.
He admitted to having viewed, shared, and sending that graphic video to other users.
Investigators say while these types of cases are never easy, there are things parents can do to be proactive in a digital age.
Parents absolutely have to monitor their children's social media activity. There's filters you can put on your routers, modems, phones to kind of filter this content from even being able to be viewed or for them to even share stuff.
Officers arrested Shackley on 10 sex crime complaints. They tell me he could face more as their investigation continues. Feliz Romero, Oklahoma Zone.
The U.S. Justice Department says Jason Janacek used a toddler to create pornographic images. The department says he babysat the 18-month-old and took explicit photos on his iPhone, then sent them to a man in New Zealand
All
via
the links are in the
Kik
description.
app. Janacek's screen name, The Lover of the Little.
FYI.
Janacek freelanced as a babysitter using an online sitter service. He also worked at Acorn Children's Center in Oklahoma City. KOCO talked to his former employer earlier this year.
The Homeland Security investigator said, well, he didn't have access to children, which is why he left you. He was trying to find someone that would let him be the babysitter in their home environment. And that's what he was looking for.
The DOJ says Janacek looked up things online like having sex with a special needs child and how do I adopt a baby. The department says he had.
How do I adopt a baby? I had to stop there and my mind Like, I literally just sat here in silence thinking about that, and my mind wandered to the darkest places possible. Now, how is it? I mean, I really hope that they're doing a good job at these adoption centers. I mean, they can't be handing over children, right, to people like this. I mean, it just can't be possible. I've never heard of something so terrible.
Also molested a 3-year-old girl, and will be on supervised release for the rest.
Something that stood out to me with this video here, they're saying if the information was gathered correctly or legally, so to speak. So I'm wondering if somehow along the way, some of the evidence may have been tainted or deemed inadmissible. So I often wonder if that's something that's going on here, and if Kagan, his attorney, told him, hey, look, they had all this information that was, pretty damning for you, but they can no longer use it. That also might make his confidence, he might become more confident at that point.
In court. In Muncie, I'm Mike Sullivan, Fox 59 News.
From actual child predators. News 8 investigator Charlotte Huffman joins us now to kick off a month of WFAA Originals. Charlotte?
Izzy, we wanted to know, how does a predator earn a child's trust? How do they prey right under their parents' noses? Those are the heartbreaking questions from the families of so many.
Okay, this one is really hard to watch. During one of the interviews, my eyes did kind of water up. So parents out there, just kind of viewer discretion. If you're not wanting to put yourself in like some type of strange mood right now, you probably don't want to watch the rest of this here.
Victims. Tonight, we're hearing the predators' unsettling stories about how they would protect children from themselves.
I took her innocence. I took her ability to be a child. And that was not mine to take. In fact, it was mine to protect.
Too often, the people trusted to protect children choose to prey on them instead. Did you know in your head at the time that what you were doing was wrong?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a North Texas man who sexually assaulted a child. So you guys had sex?
We had a sexual relationship, yes.
He went to prison. Now, years later, he's agreed to tell us the secrets of predators as long as we hide his identity. Are you the type of person that parents might look at and say, he looks like a sex offender?
No.
You're the opposite.
Absolutely. In fact,
so this is the reason I saved this video here, for insight on what we might be looking for. Hiding in plain sight. People will be shocked when they find out what you did. Listen to what this guy is explaining here.
That parents might look at and say, he looks like a sex offender.
No.
You're the opposite.
Absolutely. In fact, I would be the kind of person that they would look at and say, there's not a chance in the world he would ever have done what he did. Not a chance in the world.
Perpetrators often wear a mask of deception.
Not a chance in the world, he said. They would have never suspected him. And that's by design.
Terry Miller is one of the nation's leading experts on the topic.
It's very common for these perpetrators to be teachers of the year and be award-winning coaches. The victim is the only one who knows the monster.
I wanted to be the next great mentor to young people. I wanted to change lives.
Yet this popular North Texas teacher had a secret.
I had a sexual attraction to an underage female. For me, pornography was a big trigger.
He sent explicit nude photos of himself to a student. He was later convicted of indecency with a child.
The act itself is about as close to unforgivable as you can get.
In each story, the predator, the victim, and the ending are different.
Oh yeah, Vanessa.
But both offenders say their stories and the many others like them
wait till this
always
last one
start the same.
It's what we refer to in counseling as grooming your victim.
Grooming is the common practice of breaking down a child's moral fibers.
They first rape the child's mind and then in order to rape their body.
The predators say the first step is isolating their victim.
Creating opportunities to be alone with her, apart and separate from the group, on the bus sitting together all the time.
Then they work to earn their victim's trust. You become the child's confidant.
You become the child's confidant. You become their all in all. You become the one that they look to as the one that is going to provide their answers and give them their guidance.
So once you earn the child's trust, it becomes easier to push the boundaries.
That's correct.
Most often, they use texts and Facebook to do it.
So you allow sexual subject matter to be talked about, perhaps. You're open to sexual questions, and of course then you start to push the boundary a little farther. Like, is that something you're interested in? What do you like in those situations?
What did you do or say to make sure that her parents didn't know or suspect anything?
Lied continually. We would sneak around and find ways to meet at the mall or meet at the movie theater. When we became sexual, that's when everything went into protection mode. We've got to hide this. We've got to keep this secret.
The conversation we had was difficult to hear, but listen as he gives advice to parents everywhere.
If a parent sees their child spending an inordinate amount of time with a significant adult
it's just
that is
unforgivable.
outside the family,
Let's leave it at
that
that.
is something to really spend some time looking at. If your child themselves starts talking about another significant adult in ways that you're going, I didn't realize you guys were that close. Any attempt to gather favor, connection is a part of that grooming process.
They say the number one deterrent is an adult who monitors the child's electronic communication.
Because this whole situation thrives in secrecy. It will never survive in the midst of the light.
Talk to you later.
Well, if you notice that we did not interview any female predators, let's be very clear. It's not because there aren't any, but because they wouldn't agree to an interview. If you want to learn more.
How did you find your victims?
I found my victims moving from town to town. I scoped them out on school grounds. I scoped them out in Little League diamonds. I scoped them out in my own backyards, my neighborhoods, and things like that. I worked with people who had younger brothers. I socialized with those people so I could get in touch with their younger brothers and begin the grooming process. And eventually, it would take time, but I knew what I was doing. It was all calculated. I mean, this is nothing that happened overnight. I knew, and I planned it all. It started out where I would move from one town to another. When I got located in one town, I would, survey the children in the town to see. It was always a small town. It was never a big one. Because big towns have big police forces, and big police forces tend not to be very friendly. Small towns have small police forces. They probably never even heard of a child molester or a sex offender, or never even had to deal with one. I knew that. At least I played upon that. And I got involved in Little League Baseball because I knew from my high school days that I could umpire Little League Baseball. I could umpire baseball. I was good at it. I was good at refereeing basketball and other sports because I could not play worth a crap in high school, but I enjoyed the sport so much that I did not want to not be a part of it. So I took up managing in high school, and then our coaches allowed me to referee intramural. And when I got to referee intramural, that gave me direct access to the younger boys. And that was how my molesting began, was in high school, when I had direct access to the younger boys through the intramurals programs. Grooming. I would check out their family situation. I would check out their clothing to see how well they were, financially. I would check out their social interaction with other kids, when we were on the ballparks or on the gym floor, you know, I would make sure which ones I wanted to molest. I would give them special attention, congratulate them, talk to them when I know that I would never be allowed to talk to anybody else. You know, aside from everybody, I would give them the attention that
extremely
an official is not supposed to give anybody. And it made them feel like, wow, he's paying me attention. You know, it is a direct form of grooming.
Were there certain characteristics that you looked for in children before molesting them?
In children, yes, but more I also looked at their families. If I thought the father was a threat, I would not approach the child.
See, that's something that I pride myself in. Like, my daughter was going on a trip, and we had just gotten through the security area, and she's at that age, you know, where she's starting to look more like a like a older person, you know, like a teenage girl, so to speak. And I'm noticing a lot of creepy men staring at her. So there was this guy who didn't know that I noticed, who was looking at my daughter, and I just stopped in the middle of this like busy area and it blocked everybody. I turned my entire body and I looked right at him with this crazy look on my face. I didn't say anything to him. And I just stared at him because I caught him red-handed staring at her, looking her up and down. And he finally noticed what I was doing, and everybody saw me staring. And even my wife stopped. And he looked up at me and he put his head down. And then I just kept walking. I didn't even say anything. He knew what I was telling him.
If I thought that the child had friends that he would tell, I would not approach him. If I thought the child had friends that were in the same capacity he was, I would approach him. For the simple fact that if I could molest him, I could lure him into believing, grooming him into believing that he would enjoy it. And therefore, I could manipulate him into having his other friends come and be molested by me as well.
So perhaps a child that doesn't really have a whole lot of friends, maybe not really a strong family, things like that.
Yes, no spiritual values, weak in education, you know, needs help in many ways, even from split parenting, you know, has a mother who may be having problems with the family, you know, well, here comes superhero in to help out, you know, wow, well, thank you very much. No problem. You ever need me to take them away for the night so you can have a night out? No problem. It works.
That is terrifying. You know, here you think somebody's just being nice to you, you know, offering to help you get, you know, a break, so to speak, and go out with your friends or have a date on the town, you know, while this very nice person watches over your children. All right. So that is the last one for tonight. We'll hang out for maybe another 5 minutes here in chat and we'll close out the live stream. Today was really great. I appreciate everybody who called in. All of you were great callers. We had some great discussion. I think these calls kind of represented kind of where everybody's at, you know, on the spectrum of what we believe. You got people who are still kind of stuck with Ron Logan, and I wouldn't, and I'm not here to say I'm an expert or I know what I'm saying. You know, like I said, everything that I'm presenting is just my opinion on the matter. So some of the evidence when looking and analyzing the image, it could be Ron Logan, you know. I'm not an expert, so I don't know really what's going on, what would cause him to look shorter. You know, what's distorting the height and the weight and the appearance. It's not Ron Logan. But if it is, then it very well could be. Yeah, I don't think they can be helped. I think all that they can do is be honest so that they can welcome the monitoring. Because the only way they're going to get help is basically getting help and protection from themselves. So they'd have to voluntarily be on a program, be monitored constantly, which most of these guys are when they get out of jail. But the sad fact of the matter is they're reoffenders, and some people that are in jail for CSAM and child abuse charges. I mean, who knows what they've really been doing? You know, there's probably unsolved murders out there that are attributed to them. There's just a whole lot of evil that comes along with somebody that could do something like that. Yeah, thank you, Beach Fairy. Good to see you. Yeah, we had some really great calls, some good discussions. I want to thank everybody that took their time out to join the conversation, whether in chat, whether live on the air with the phone call. I think today was a great discussion. I will put some more videos together. I might do part 2 tomorrow. Really depends on where I'm at and how much time I have to look at the case. Things for me start getting more busy towards the end of the month, so I kind of start to fall off with the time I have available, but I will make an effort. We'll be describing their situation. You're welcome, Vanessa. Thanks for participating and helping out, being a member, hanging out in the Discord. I appreciate it. Thank you, Public. Rain Dancer. All right, we're going to start closing her out, guys. Probably hang out another 5 minutes. Yeah, thanks, Baby Bear. Appreciate you. Yeah, Chaos, maybe we're dealing with a different type of monster. Someone who's been able to pull everyone. Thanks, Lorraine. It's always good to see you. Thank you, Nadia. What's up, Grizz? Good to see you. Hey, Gretchen. Thank you. Be safe, everybody. Don't get too crazy over the weekend. Tip your waiters and your caddies. Yeah, definitely. I think if they can do it in a humane way, definitely. Because if you're out here raping children and women, like, honestly, you should be put to death. Because the only thing that's equivalent to that really is murder. I mean, it really should be considered one, if not one step away, equal to that. Go. Thanks, Mike. Copper, thanks again for all your support. It means a lot. Yeah, and everybody who was gifted membership by Copper, we will be doing a members-only live stream on Monday or Tuesday. Not sure yet. And typically it's just something very random. It just gives members an opportunity to ask their questions in a more confined setting, I guess.